Hey guys, just wanted to tell you about the Flying Fish and all my little troubles to make it go fast. So, I build a lot of kits, like the 1/8 ZD Racing, that was a kit. All of these 1/10 ZD Racings are all kits. And then I've got a whole top shelf of Tamiya cars, those are all kits. So I love RC and I like kits and all that stuff. So anyway, this was a HSP Flying Fish, but it was the bulk kit where you just get all the parts and you put it together yourself without a manual. I had to go online and kind of get some diagrams and then watch some YouTube videos and stuff. And two guys in my group said I should try HSP because I have everything but that, basically. I even got nitro trucks. So I bought this bulk kit and I did the upgraded version where you get the aluminum chassis, and then they sent me these street tires. Well, problem number one, this I don't think is genuine HSP, because as I look, I see the HSP ones are kicked up on the edges to make it strong. Well, they drilled this thing crooked back here. So when I bolted in my two differentials, when I tightened the rear down, it went crooked. And, you know, I'd loosen it up and I'd get it straight with the shaft and tighten it to go crooked. Well, not much I can do. You know, even if I would drill out these holes bigger, they're still tapered for countersunk screws, so it's still going to go crooked again. I could add flathead screws and bigger holes to align it, but I'm like, whatever. So I just ordered the genuine HSP plastic chassis. Well, in my couple of runs, I could not keep this thing on the road because, you know, the rear end's crooked and I'm waiting for this chassis. And then in a couple of runs, it already blew the bearing out of the spur gear out of the motor mount because it was at an angle. So luckily, I already had another bearing kit, and it takes the smaller wheel bearing for in that motor mount, so that was no problem. But here's one other HSP problem. This wheel outer hex, the little stub axle, they didn't machine it good. I could not get a bearing on there. The bearing wouldn't fit. And I got a Dremel and stuff, but I'm like, it's gonna be crooked, it's not gonna be good. So I just ordered another set of bearings and another set of these little wheel, drive axles. So I had a bearing to put in there is what I'm saying. But yeah, this was a HSP problem. The quality control, you can't put their own bearing on it, so that was a problem. And then these street tires that I got, so slippery. This thing on my GPS, I could not get over 40 kilometers per hour, and it's in the ditch. Just every little bump in my road, it's sideways, sideways, sideways. It was a handful. So I kind of chatted with that guy that said, yeah, you should try HSP. And he said, for one thing, it's so flexible here. It's always, the shock is on one side of the A-arm, and then it's twisting. And these that come with it, they're like rubber. You can just twist them all over. So it's changing caster all the time when it's hitting a bump. And when you're on the throttle and off the throttle, it's all rocking back and forth. It was like wet spaghetti. So he had bent some extra arms and made some longer screws and adapters and spacers and extra arms so that it wasn't doing that. Well, I thought, okay, that's a lot of work. So I ordered the aluminum control arms, all four of them, and that fixed that problem. And I don't want too much aluminum because I want a little bit of flex in a crash or something. So I left all the caster blocks and all these bearing hub holders, they're all plastic yet. But that took care of this problem where it was always flexing. I mean, you just set the car down, and with the shock being on the back, you saw everything flex to the front. And then this one, it would flex to the back. So too flexible. The thing, it was all over the road. And then another thing he did, he put longer shocks on his, because just in a couple runs, it's all scratched up this aluminum chassis. It was just dragging everywhere, especially in the rear end. So he said longer shocks help. He did WL shocks for the buggy, the 144001. Well, I dug through my collection. I got these WL toys, the Rock Racer, which is a 12428, and then the short course truck. So the short course is the same thing, horizontally mounted shocks. Well, I tried them on here and it was good. So then I just ordered a complete set of 4 for the Rock Racer, and then the holes are a little too big in the eyes of the shock for the screws, so I have, like for chainsaws, fuel line, and I just cut little pieces to go on the screw and then into the shock, so I don't have slop with the shock bouncing on the screw. So little pieces of silicone fuel line, so that took care of that, and that got it up in the air a little bit. And then these are threaded for all the, adjustments, firm and soft. And when it was firm, it just bounced down the road and it was still bad. So I found out long shocks, real soft settings, and then you have to have grippy tires. These are rally car tires. They're the same height, maybe a little bit, couple millimeters taller, but very similar to the street wheels, except they got grip. So that helped it go in a straight line. These... they just slide all over. I was in the ditch all the time. So basically what we're trying to say here, I would say first upgrade is the aluminum lower arms to get rid of all that flex. Second upgrade is taller, longer shocks. The WL ones work good for me. I filled them up with oil. And then, stay away from this chassis. It's probably just a cheap aftermarket thing. Well, how many of these did their big drill, press, probably drills all the holes all at once? How many did they drill crooked, So if you get this stupid thing, you're going to be doing what I did, blow the bearing, have the rear end sitting, kitty corner, and then that doesn't work at all. And then with the loose kit, you don't get hardly any hardware. You don't get the wheel nuts, you don't get the little wheel pins, and you don't get the E-clips that hold all the hinge pins in, and you don't get the E-clips for back here on the Spur gear. So I luckily had 1/10 hardware, and I got all the grub screws and stuff like that. Well then, even back here, it needs a big grub screw to lock in the hinge pin back there. Well, my 1/10 stuff didn't fit, so I had to dig through the 1/8 hardware I had extra for the ZD Racing to get grub screws that would, hold that pin in there. So I don't know, if you buy a Flying Fish, I guess get one that's assembled, because this thing... luckily I'm into hobby pretty heavy and I got all this hardware so I could do it, but I still had to wait, over a week to get that and to get another bearing set. And then, took a while. I was like on back order. Only one store had the plastic genuine HSP chassis, and I didn't want to risk this again. So yeah, I got this is all my extra parts. I did buy the aluminum caster blocks, all these uprights, but I figured I don't want too much aluminum on here because I still want some kind of flex in case, I crash it. So just for comparison, this is LRP or ZD Racing. It's like, I think they share the same chassis on this road one. Well, this comes assembled. All I had to do was screw on the front bumper and then put in my electronics. It's a roller. But yeah, I didn't mess with the shocks. These come with really big bore shocks. I mean, they're almost twice the width. And they're a little bit stiff, but this thing drives good. And this doesn't have all that flex. I mean, the lower control arms are pretty stiff. The chassis is stiff. Even though it's only a plastic upper brace, this thing doesn't flex. So, and this one comes with sway bars front and back too. You don't get any sway bars on this thing. This thing still can, it can do all this leaning stuff. So, I don't know, I really like this, but HSP does have all the parts. I mean, you can easily buy every little thing. It's even a little bit harder on this one where I'm at in the Philippines to get LRP or ZD Racing parts for this. It's easy getting the bigger ZD Racing stuff, the monster truck, all that, you know, but a little bit harder here. They're the same differentials, but I haven't really seen too much for control arms, but I'm probably not going to break a control arm on this. I don't have concrete curbs to run into. I just got grass along my road, and I don't, you know, have cars to be banging off of. Like in the city, all the cars parked along the street. I know too many guys that hit the wheel on a car and all the pieces go flying. But yeah, I like this one definitely better. It goes straight. It's going 64 kilometers per hour right now on brushless. And then now that I got this one finally drivable, I'll GPS it. It should go faster because I have a more KV brushless motor. So yeah, just kind of giving you guys a little heads up, I guess, on what it really needs. I mean, it was undrivable, and I can drive. I got some squirrely little cars. Up here is probably the squirreliest things you can have. The WL toys with the 540 motor. It's only 1/18, you know, the B model, but those I can still go like 60 kilometers per hour. But yeah, this thing was my challenge. So thanks a lot for watching.